Hi there. Some time back I showed you how to reduce liabilities having bet in the over 2.5 goals market in response to a question raised by a subscriber. What I'm going to show you here is how to expand that to cover not just the over 2.5 goals, but also have a look at the over 1.5 and 3.5. So as you can see here, I have the strategy editor open, and we can look at the first three rules in this strategy that I've set up, and we'll test it this evening on some matches. Essentially, each of these strategies are essentially the same thing. If you recall from the original strategy, I set it up so that drip fed bets into the market after 10 minutes by first checking to see if there was actually any goals scored. So that's what we're going to do here. But we're going to start off in the over 1.5 goals market. So what it's going to do is, first of all, check to see if there's any goals in the first 10 minutes. And that's carried out by this first rule here. So this rule only kicks in 590 seconds. So in other words, just before the 10 minutes is up. That rule will operate for a total of 10 seconds. And it checks to see if there's no goals, and it makes sure that any suspension has been unsuspended for at least 5 seconds. So what we're trying to do here is have a quick snapshot to see what the status is in terms of the number of goals in the market. Now, if these two conditions are true, this condition obviously is executed one time. Assuming that that's the case, this rule here will start drip feeding bets into the over 1.5 market, £5 at a time. And it does so based on these conditions. So first of all, checks again to make sure that there's no goals. That's important because these bets are going to get fed in 2-minute intervals. So at some stage, there may be a goal. So that will stop this looping through. So let's say, for example, we've had 6 bets put in. So that's £30 worth. This bet rule will stop submitting any more bets if there's been a goal, and consequently it won't execute the full 20 times, giving us a total maximum possible stake of £100. The other conditions in here fairly self-explanatory. It's checking to make sure that the over-under 1.5 market is in play and it's active. In other words, it's not suspended. It also checks to see if this thing here has been executed once, and it also checks to make sure that there's no suspensions, or it's been at least a minute since there was a suspension. Once there is a goal, this thing here stops placing bets in, but this one then starts kicking in, and it will start putting lay bets into the market of £5 each. And it does so by essentially laying the over 1.5 goals in order to remove the liability that will be sitting on the under 1.5 goals from this rule here. And it has much the same sort of conditions. A couple of extra ones, however. The number of goals is set to greater than 0. In other words, whilst this drip feeding of the lay bets are going in to remove the liability, we are happy that another goal comes along because that's beneficial for this particular strategy. So a goal will come along, the market will be suspended, it will wait for 1 minute after the market is unsuspended, and then it will carry on laying. But of course, a goal having been scored, it will be laying at a lower price. So it carries on removing the liability after the first goal. Of course, if a second goal comes along, the market closes and you win whatever's left on your over 1.5 goals. The other options here First of all, the over under 1.5 PL. That's just checking to see that we still have a red on the under 1.5. The reason for that is once that red is cleared, this will no longer continue. We don't need it to continue. In addition to that, the over under 1.5 green up for the over 1.5 goals has to be greater than 0. Now that's a condition in there in the situation where if the odds have changed so much before the first goal comes in and the odds then drop, but they don't drop far enough to get you back into a green position, there's a possibility, since we are laying the over 1.5 goals to clear the liability, you may end up with generating a liability on the over 1.5 goals. And that's particularly true if you are, if this rule is still running towards the tail end of the game, where the odds can change very dramatically. So that in there stops further lays going in if the profit or loss on the over 1.5 goals has fallen below 0. In other words, you have a red figure on the over 1.5 goals. And the last one, it just checks to make sure that this rule here has fired at least once. In other words, there's no point in putting in lays into the market if there's no back bets to counter them. And then finally, there's a trade out for a £50 red. So if there's no goals and the back bets are fed into the market and there's no goals once the potential red up for the market is concerned reaches £50, i.e. a loss of £50, it will automatically green up and take that loss. Again, that's to avoid you going all the way to the end with no goals and then suddenly having late goals where it can cause all sorts of funny things. So that's just a case of taking the hit if you reach 50 quid liability. Now, if you consider an over 2.5 goals market, if there is, when after the first goal, that market essentially becomes similar to the 1.5 market, particularly if that goal arrives early in the game. So what we're going to do is essentially exactly the same as this, but if I just increase this a little bit so we can see the next few lines, you'll see on close inspection that these 4 lines here are essentially the same as those 4 lines there, except that it's looking at 1 goal instead of 0. It's obviously looking at the over-unders 2.5 market, but all these items here where you're looking for 1 goal, 0 goals up here, they've been changed to 1 goal. So in other words, it's still looking in the first 10 minutes. If there's an early goal in that first 10 minutes, this strategy essentially combines 2 individual strategies and it will automatically switch to the 2.5 goals market if there's an early goal in the first 10 minutes. And you won't be surprised to learn that you can do the same for the 3.5 goals market. So let me just expand this a little bit more. And you can see that all these conditions are essentially the same, except where you're looking for the number of goals scored, it's been changed to 2. So in other words, if there's 2 quick goals in the first 10 minutes, this strategy will automatically start putting back bets into the over 3.5 market. So each of these blocks of 4 rules are essentially their own individual strategy. It's just that by doing it this way, you can combine them into one strategy. Another thing to note as well is that I am using or specifically identifying which market I'm operating in. The reason for that is, if I come out of this, I've got it assigned to the match odds market. Now, by default, if you assign a strategy to a market, the bets and any other rules in that strategy will be assigned, will act upon the market to which the strategy is assigned to. By using this linked market feature, you don't need to do that. So what you'll find is that as these markets come on stream, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. As these markets come on stream, you'll find that Fairbot starts to open up the other markets because it needs to access those to fire bets into them, as well as do checks for conditions and so on. And that then allows you to manually, if you wish, for example, trade in this match odds market. In the meantime, Fairbot's off doing its thing in the overs 1-5, 2-5 and 3-5 market. Okay, so I've got this assigned to the matches at Wolves, Aston Villa and Leeds tonight. So I'll come back periodically to see what's happening. Okay, you'll see in the Wolves game there's been a goal in about 4 or 5 minutes. Nothing, of course, happens within the market as far as we're concerned until such times as this rule kicks in. Or more specifically, this rule as well, because this is going to check to see if there's been a goal in the first 10 minutes. So this one will try to kick in. There's one goal scored, so that condition won't be true. So this rule shouldn't fire on the 10-minute mark. This one, however, should fire because there's obviously been a goal. And this one shouldn't fire because there's only been one goal. And there you can see that one's just fired okay. 1 out of 1. So this should kick in fairly shortly and start placing bets in the market. Okay, there's it fired once. There's the £5 going in to the over 2.5 goals market. Okay, so by setting this up and essentially having 3 very similar strategies combined in the one, you have the one strategy that you can assign to the match, and it will pick the corresponding overs market to get involved in, totally dependent on how many goals have been scored in the first 10 minutes. So this will carry on sticking in these bets. Another 2 minutes will go past, and this will put in another £5 bet. You've seen this in action before, this type of thing, in a previous 2 or 3 videos I've done. It behaves in exactly the same way. The main difference with this strategy is the fact that it selects which over and unders market to get involved in. So I'm going to let that chug along, and we'll come back later on. The other matches don't start till 7:45 and 8 o'clock. So we'll see how those are getting on. So I'll be back shortly. Cheers. Okay, you can see that the Aston Villa game has been going on for 9 minutes, and there's no goals at the moment. So assuming there's no goal within the next 60 seconds or so, what we should find is that back bets will start to get placed in the over 1.5 goals market. That's the plan. So the other match, the final match, the Leeds-Leicester, that's still to kick off, but it'll be kicking off fairly shortly. In the meantime, of course, you can see that the bets are still feeding into the Wolves game in the over 2.5. And there's all the back bets being placed in, £5 a time, once every 2 minutes. And as you can see, the reason for doing that is you'll just get better odds and better odds as the match progresses without a goal, and the over 2.5 goals odds increase. Hopefully, of course, we would like a goal before half time, ideally, but we'll let that carry on doing its thing. So there's the first bet, as you can see there, going into the over 1.5 goals in the Aston Villa game. And you'll see I don't have a strategy assigned because I'm in the match, in the over unders, and it's assigned to the match odds market. So that's the thing that's controlling it all, but it's sending the bets into these markets that do not have the strategy assigned to them, or not directly anyway. So we've gone past the 10-minute mark. Clearly there was no goals scored, so this rule has kicked in, which has caused the bets to start drip feeding into the over 1.5 goals market. All the others, i.e. the over 2.5 and the over 3.5, those markets will not be touched as far as the Aston Villa game is concerned. So it would be nice to see in the last game, the Leeds game, getting 2 goals in the first 10 minutes to see the over 3.5 markets becoming involved in this demonstration. You could theoretically change the timing, of course. So, for example, you might check for the over 2.5 goals, you might set that rather than looking at 10 minutes, look at the first 15 minutes, for example, and the first 20 minutes for the over 3.5. The issue with that, of course, is that there is an overlap between all of those particular markets. So you may end up getting involved in the over 1.5, the 2.5, and the 3.5, depending on when the goals came. So that would be something that you could have a wee play with on your own, but just be aware that you could end up committing more money to this particular match than you had intended. Other things that you might want to look at is changing the stake values for all the drip bets that are going in, as well as the timings as when those go in. So at the moment, all the back bets are going in £5 increments every 2 minutes, up to a maximum of £100 per match. So you can change those figures to manipulate the way you wish these strategies to be implemented each time. You can also, things that you might want to consider is changing the time since unsuspended. I've set it to 1 minute. You can obviously increase that to give the markets time to settle down after a goal. I'm in two minds. As I say, and as I keep repeating, I am not a football trader. So that's really something that you need to decide what you're comfortable with. Okay, we'll just let these things progress. And again, I'll come back a little later when there's more action. Okay, as you can see, there's been a goal in the Leeds-Leicester game. Ideally, we want another quick one to let us see the over 3.5 option kicking in. We'll just have to wait and see. But as before, you can see bets are still going in as far as Wolves are concerned. We're up to £70 now. We've got Aston Villa. That has traded out. Actually, I missed that happening. I missed the goal on that one. Sorry about that. So you can see that the bets have been laid off, cleared the liability, and it looks like that's carrying on, which it shouldn't. Give me a second. Yeah, I see. Sorry, I see why that's had another Lego in there. I've got that set to less than or equal to 0 rather than less than. That's my mistake. That should be less than. Oops, never mind. So we've got a nice trade there for a fiver. That explains that. Switching back to the Leeds game. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to get another goal. So the row one is just carrying on as before. So it's really just a case of waiting for a goal. Ideally, as I say, it's best for a goal to come before the first half, I would suggest. If no goals appear, obviously your full £100 stake will eventually be submitted, and the £50 red across the market would probably appear around about halfway through the second half, I surmise, give or take. So we'll see how that goes. There's a bet just going into the Leeds game. So we didn't get a second goal, so it's going into the over 1.5. So we didn't get a goal, I should say. That goal must have been chalked off. Interesting. Yeah, you can see dramatically from the graph there. So there must have been a VAR. So I don't understand this VAR thing. As a non-football trader, it must be really frustrating for you football traders, this VAR thing. I mean, if there's any possibility of VAR being implemented, Betfair shouldn't unsuspend the market, in my view. Anyway. Okay, so I'll come back to this video a little bit later on, once some more action has occurred. So I've just come back from making a cup of tea and found that the Leeds Leicester one has traded out. Again, you'll see it's done the same thing as before because of my error in setting that to equals less than or equal to 0. It's put in an extra lay there, which is essentially greened out. Given that, let me see, it's only done 5 back bets, so it's only put in £25. As we can see here, so it's put in a 25 and it's got laid 6 times as opposed to 5 times. So that one's worked okay. This one, obviously, we desperately need a goal. But it will actually be interesting to see now that the £100 have been committed to the market, to see where it hits the minus 50, because as part of this process, of course, you need to be able to test everything with regard to your strategy. And so what we really want to see is perhaps this thing here kicking in, this thing here kicking in, so that it trades out if we hit minus 50. And that's not going to work, isn't it? Because I've just spotted a mistake. That should say minus 50. Bollocks. Sorry. Never mind, so that won't get tested. So we really need another goal or two to get that one to trade out. But I'll come back later on in the match and see what's happened. But yeah, that should say minus 50. So that trade out, none of the trade outs will work because I've forgotten to put that to minus 50 rather than 50. Oops. Okay, I've come back to the Wolves Crystal Palace match, 60 minutes in, and there's still no further goals. And as you can see, in the under over 2.5 goals market, we are past the £50 red up position that would have been triggered if I'd actually created the strategy properly. In that this thing here, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. Well, all of them, I suppose. It should have been minus 50. That was my mistake. Sorry about that. But if that had been correct, that would have triggered within the Wolves Crystal Palace under over 2.5 market, and it would have readied up for a £50 loss. Okay, so you get the gist of that there. Apologies for the couple of silly mistakes, typing errors, whatever you want to call them. So this one here should actually read less than 0 rather than less than or equal to 0, and that applies to each of the 3 versions within the strategy. Similarly, the green up process for the trade out rule, that should say -50, and similarly on the other 2 as well. So you've essentially got 3 strategies that are all the same, except that they operate on the different goal markets, 1.5, 2.5 and 3.5. But other than that, they all do the same thing. So just to reiterate some of the things that you might want to investigate with regard to modification. Stake size you might want to change. The wait time for the drip feeding. So from the back side, you might want to change from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, for example. On the lay side, you might want to change that from 15 seconds to 20 seconds, keeping in mind that the longer you wait as you lay off, keep in mind that the layoff process is there to reduce any liabilities that are sitting. So the longer that you wait, the longer it's going to take to lay off those liabilities. So just keep that in mind. Having said that, the longer it takes for that drip fed lay process to run through increases the chance of another goal appearing, which means that the market would be closed and you would win whatever was on the over goals side of the book. So adjusting the timings, adjusting the stake size. One other thing that you might want to do is with regard to the stake size is on the back fed rule, you may actually want to create another rule that after 10 minutes when this rule would normally kick in, you might want to delay it some while and instead have a bet that puts in, rather than £5, let's say puts in £20. And then you can then wait 10 minutes and put in your drip fed back bets at £5 a time. Keep in mind you only need to go up to £80 in that case. So you could do that way, and hopefully, unlike these 2 rules here, where we've only had a chance to get £5 into the market before a goal came along, by putting an initial bet of a reasonable sized chunk, that perhaps gives you a better opportunity of getting a better profit when there's a goal midway through the first half. And the other option that you might want to think about, although it's perhaps riskier, it involves potentially more outlay, is actually delaying when these groups of bets go in. So for example, if in the case of the over under 1.5 goals market, you might want to check for no goals in the first 10 minutes. And then for the over under 2.5 goals, check for a goal in the first 15 minutes. And then similarly for the over under 3.5, check for 2 goals within the first 20 minutes. Something like that. So there's plenty of things that you could be playing around with to see how things go with it. But for the purposes of this exercise and this demonstration, I think you've probably got enough to be getting on with. So once again, let me just thank you for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And I'll speak to you later. Cheers.